Good morning, my name is Lori Fahey, and I'd like to welcome you here today to the 17th Annual Family Cafe. Thank you. And let me say, welcome home, everyone. Oh, thank you all. With me today, well, before I get started, let me introduce to you some very important people. A lot goes into putting on an event like this. At the very end, from the volunteers, to you that are here, to the volunteer keynote speakers, to the volunteer agencies, to the volunteers that we have. But throughout the year, there are some very important people that you will call when you call our office, and you will not only talk to myself, but you may talk to Jeremy Countryman. Jeremy, wave your hand. You'll hear more from Jeremy as the weekend goes on. You'll also talk to Whitney Harris. And then I'm going to embarrass the last one because he's a newlywed and he will be leaving us next week. But his name is Max Corbin. So Max. Is Abby in the room? Okay, and he, of course, in the spirit of volunteering, he has his new bride working. So, and thank you all. We have a staff of 4, and we have a volunteer mass of hundreds throughout the state, so I want to thank you all so much. Also standing with me today is Susan Barrows. She's the Family Cafe chairman of the board, and she's going to make some introductions. But let me just say, 17 years. I mean, that's a lot. Yeah. We come here because finding resources seem to be getting harder and harder, but we as families, we're determined, and we're going to ensure that the resources are available to our loved ones. That's right. And we hope this weekend you will find help, or better yet, even give help to others. We can do this one of a few ways. Now, we're going to talk to you, and you're going to learn this week about the disability movement. It's 25 years young, 25 years hard. And we've got to carry it the next 25 years. But in everyone's bag, you have your pink cards. So I want to hear, is it working for you? Because if it's working in Tallahassee, but it's not working in Miami, we've got a problem, don't we? If you need a service, but nobody in Tallahassee knows you have a service, then we've got a problem. So we need to use our voice. And we can use our voice over and over and over. I mean, next year, we got a presidential election coming up. Every 2 years, the legislature is in a special session now, and we'll hear about more of their activities this evening when you come back. There are plenty of ways for our voices to be heard, and we need to speak up and speak often. Also in the exhibitor booth, back again, is if you haven't you haven't registered to vote. Anybody in the room hasn't registered to vote? Please ensure that you register to vote. Use your voice. Okay. Let me ask one last question. How many of you have been here the past 17 years? Yeah? I've been here. Okay. How about 15 years? Keep your hands raised if you're 17. 15? All my returns, there we go. You're late. 13? 14, that's good. You can go up to, there you go. Okay, we're all going to if this is your first time here, raise your hand. Yes. Yeah, let's give them a hand. And let me give you a special welcome home and welcome back to everyone else. And now, Susan Barrows.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. 17 years, can you believe it? Just thinking 3 more years, it'll be 20. And that'll make us all feel really, really old. Because our babies won't be babies. They'll be the next leaders taking over for us. Some of you now can turn around the room. I know there's a lot of new people in the room, but take a look around and welcome your old friends or shake a hand and make a new friend, because we're all here for the next couple of days to learn as much as we can to move this movement forward. So I'll give you a minute to introduce yourselves, a little icebreaker. I love hearing all the chatter. Love, love, love it. Now, when you all go home, you're going to have all these new friends. So, find them on Facebook. Get their emails. Keep in touch. Okay, Laura, you want to talk a little bit about what we're doing this weekend and what we've already done?
Okay. Let me tell you about what went on yesterday. At the Family Cafe, we already usually have a day before what we call our pre-con for leadership and development for individuals who would like a little bit more information or to give back just a little bit stronger. Well, yesterday we hosted, after 3 years of moms coming to me all the time and saying, hey, I'm getting tired, I'm getting old. And I'm like, hey, I know, so am I. But we know the stress of being a caregiver. So we hosted our first of many. It was a 2015 Women's Summit. We had about 150 women who signed up for a full day of networking, personal growth, and camaraderie among women who are now friends, who are in all stages of life, who hold diverse interests and needs. The mission was simple: to provide women an opportunity to create for themselves new possibilities to share their voice and talents and to achieve their goals. We're not quite up to the stage of Oprah, that everyone won a car, but there was a great opportunity. As I said, it was awesome that over 150 people attended, and we are going to continue with the Women's Summit every year. And some of the Women's Summit activities have spread into the Family Cafe itself, so look at your program. It was a theme of health and self-care, a theme of taking action with the motto, everywhere women decide, women act. Okay, that's just how I go, that's how I roll. As I said, look out, we're going to continue this on. Susan.
Thanks, Lori. At this time, I would like to introduce you all to the Family Cafe Board of Directors. If they're in the room, please stand. Raise your hand. Gil Williams is our volunteer photographer. Sarah York, Dee O'Neill, Toddler Parrish, Yolanda Herrera, who sells the cookies and volunteers all that money back. Is Tracy Schmidt in the room, or Sharon Rousey? They're also on the board along with Jim DeBogren, so they will be around all this weekend, and we wear these, oops, I can't walk away. We wear these little chef coats because we're ambassadors, and that means like we're supposed to know everything about this. But after 17 years, I kind of feel like I can. Yeah. So you can find one of us if you don't know what you're doing or where you're going, or if you couldn't find something in your bag. And the other thing we did this year, and I'm hoping everybody had an opportunity to do it, was we have a Family Cafe app that could be downloaded through Google or through iTunes, and it's basically the whole conference program on an app. So you can pre-plan where you're going, what you're doing. It's got a map, it's got all kinds of interactive things. It talks about all the changes in the program, because you know how we're always, well, I'm going to do it anyways, the old-fashioned way. But it tells you when something's been canceled or something's been moved. But if you haven't downloaded it, it's really, really cool. So I guess you just go to the Google store or the iStore, and it's under 17 Family Cafe. So if you want to, after we're done here, please download it, and it'll give you a whole lot more information. As you know, our event this year is a celebration of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The anniversary is July, and it'll be the 25th anniversary. We have given you some fact sheets for you to read. We had 500, and they went on the first 500 chairs on this side of the splash zone. So if you got one, if not, we'll have to probably maybe put them out by email. But it's got a lot of questions and answers and fun facts. This weekend, we will continue the Americans with Disabilities Act celebration of the 25 years of removing barriers and empowering people. Did you know that the Americans with Disabilities Act ensures that discrimination against people with disabilities in employment, transportation, public accommodations, communication, and governmental activities? The Americans with Disabilities Act also establishes requirements for telecommunication relay services. So all these things are attached, and y'all need to just know this, that, it wasn't just something that was passed and, there's all these services. You got to understand everything that fell under that umbrella. The Americans with Disabilities Act also established, I already said that, sorry guys. Its passage was not easy, as no significant language is. But as you will view in the keynote today, it did not come without a struggle and a triumph. Do you know who Justin Dart is? Put your hands up if you do, or clap or make some noise. There's pictures of him up here. We all know him as the father of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Justin Dart was an international human rights activist and leader of the international disability rights movement for 3 decades. 30 years he fought. His leadership and accomplishment earned him the distinction as the father of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the godfather of the disabilities rights movement. He was born into a wealthy and prominent family. He attended the best schools. He had a lot of advantages. Justin Dart contracted polio and spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So he had a real shift to make. He started the Japanese Tupperware. Kind of odd. During this time, he met his wife, Yoshiko, I always have trouble with that word, who was his constant companion and who also has dedicated her life to human and disabilities rights. We invited Yoshiko, sorry about that, here to be with us to celebrate Justin Dart and the movement he pushed with the leadership that lives on. She provided us with the pictures, as you can see, the ideas for the celebration, and the education you will get this weekend. And actually, I wish she was here to hear, as she would say, lead us, lead on. That's what she would say. And it's one of her, her mottos. And she says it with passion. As we keep the promise together, she loves you all for being here. The Americans with Disabilities Act, as a law, was enacted by the U.S. Congress in 1990. In 1986, the National Council on Disabilities, known as the NCD, recommended enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is the ADA, and draft of the first version of the bill was introduced in the House and the Senate in 1988. Senator Tom Harkin, Democrat from, where was he from? Oh, Iowa. Thank you. I don't know my state abbreviation, so slap me on that one. Authored what became the final bill and was the chief sponsor in the Senate. Harkin delivered part of his introduction speech in sign language, saying it was so his deaf brother could understand. I mean, how cool is that? It was signed into law on July 26, 1990, by President George H.W. Bush. The ADA, yeah, let's give that a big clap. The Americans with Disabilities Act is a wide-ranging civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. It affords similar protections against discrimination to Americans with disabilities as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which made discrimination based on race, religion, sex, national origin, and other characteristics illegal. In addition, unlike the Civil Rights Act, the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, also requires covered employers to provide reasonable accommodations. to employees with disabilities and imposes accessibility requirements on public accommodations. So thank you for that act being passed. Now what I'd like to do is introduce, we're going to watch a movie today, and the movie is called Life's Worth Living, and we'll have a question and answer afterward. We have with us as our keynotes today, Allison Gilkey and Eric Neudel. If you're here, could you wave or stand or?
They're here.
Oh, right here, come on. Sorry about that. And here they are. Would you like to say a few words before?
Are you finished? You can finish first. Okay.
Well, hello everybody. I'm not sure I'm speaking into this or this, but I guess it doesn't really matter. What a beautiful sight this is. All of you families, the spirit in this room is palpable. We are here to present the film that we made a couple of years ago about the history of the disability rights movement. And a lot of people in here, especially the younger folks, probably don't know an awful lot about it. They know that they have the same rights as everybody else, but maybe they don't know how that came to be. The people that you will meet in the film are truly icons of the disability rights movement. But before the disability rights movement got started, it was the families. Families are the bedrock of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Without families who had no support, nowhere to turn decades ago, without you folks, there would be no Americans with Disabilities Act. We know there's still a long way to go, that the provisions of the ADA are being attacked on a daily basis. Benefits are being taken away. But anyway, we are so thrilled to be here. We hope that you love the film. We know we're short on time also, so I'd like to introduce you to Eric Neudel, who's the director of Lives Worth Living.
Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here today. Really great to see all of you out here. I wanted to point out that 55 years ago, this would not be possible. You would not have been able to get into a building together. You would not have had the advantages of an interpreter or anybody caring about whether or not there was an interpreter. In fact, the movement that we've done a documentary about is about a group of people whose parents and families supported them to do this revolution for people with disabilities. It was an amazing movement. Just about the time I was born, that's when it really kicked into gear. And it had two major factors at its birth, two midwives. One of them was the returning soldiers from World War II, as you'll see, and the other is families. What they had was a void for their children, and they were left to their own devices to get their kids the services that they needed, but there were no services. There were no curb cuts, there were no elevators where there needed to be elevators. There was disregard for people with disabilities in general. It was a completely different world. And we now live in a world that is striving for equality. And that's what this film is all about. So we don't have a lot of time, and we want to leave a little time for questions at the end. So I'll keep it really short to that. But if we don't have a lot of time, you should feel free to come up and ask questions after. There always are a lot of questions, and we're really happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll go ahead now and start the film.
We're running late on time, and I want to thank you all, but we're going to ask both Eric and Allison to come up and take some questions from the crowd that you may have. They will also stay after. And then we also have our traditional door prizes after each keynote. If you have a ticket, we're giving away a computer, so hang tight. We're going to do about 5 minutes of questions. You'll still have enough time to get to your sessions. Thank you so much. If this movie didn't hit you all, it hit me hard. So I hope you all will remember and fight with us. Eric, Allison, thank you. Oh.
I sit there.
Cry. This thing like a baby.
I know.
Yeah, you make me cry.
Thank you so much. My daughter was born in '87, so I was there for the beginning.
Mine was born in '89. You know, we have watched this film, not only did we make the film, but we've watched this film hundreds of times with hundreds of audiences. And I still get very emotional watching this film. I know it word for word, but it doesn't matter. Hopefully, you folks all learned something from this. I mean, this is your film. This film was made for you. Families are what made this possible, so thank you. And if anybody has any questions, I know we're so short on time.
We'll talk fast.
Hello? Yeah. Sure can. Good day. Y'all did a great job. This right here was, woo, just touched me so tremendously. Keep up the great work.
We have one right here, too.
Excellent, but how can we get a copy?
From our website, you can either Google Lives Worth Living, but our website is Storyline Motion Pictures. That's all one word. StorylineMotionPictures.com.
We have another one over here.
Hi, and thank you so much. The ADA was a great step forward in the last millennium. I'd like this group to know that another major bill was passed in December called the ABLE 529 account, Achieving Better Life Experience. With this bill, and here in Florida as well as across the country, hopefully later this year, individuals with disabilities will be able to have not $2,000 in their own name, but up to $100,000 in their own name. So this is going to help with financial freedom for our families. The next great bill after that, I have to say, I wrote now in Congress, called the Special Needs Tax Credit Act. For our young adults, 18 and older, who don't have the capacity to make decisions for themselves. Parents often need to become their legal guardian. If the families can't afford up to $5,000 to be their guardian, and the individual can't speak for himself, that person has no freedom of speech, no equal representation under the law. The Special Needs Tax Credit Act, H.R. 1747, like a big plane ready to take off, I've been working on for 8 years, which would allow a one-time $5,000 refundable tax credit to reimburse low and moderate income families for the cost of guardianship. Thank you.
We have one right here. Sir?
I wish I knew sign language.
No.
So my question is, how can you help families with sign language? As far as communication is concerned and accessibility, how can you help them with sign language? Thank you.
Well, of course, the deaf community was very important in the passage of the ADA. And one of the most important provisions in the ADA is in telecommunications. That was a real forward-thinking breakthrough within the law. It was the fourth section of the ADA, and it had a tremendous impact on people who are deaf. And the reason it has such a tremendous impact is it provides for continuing advancement in communication for non-hearing people or people who have some difficulty with hearing. So the law itself provided for TTY and now new forms of communication. It also helped to open up new technologies for communicating with the deaf. But the most important provision within the law said that nobody could be excluded from television, films, that sort of thing. So these provisions, some of them are just kicking in right now. But when it comes to television, there has to be closed captioning, there has to be access to information for people who are deaf. And that was really far-reaching in 1990.
I'd also like to mention that representatives from the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind are here. Don't know exactly where, but they're here in the hall. Okay.
We have one more question over here.
Well, we have one last one here, and then we're going to do the door prizes.
Yes, one of the things that I'm real concerned about is we've done so much, but there's so much more, as you well know, to do. I know several years ago I had difficulty and I kept on calling ADA, wherever it is in DC, because my husband needed a first floor bedroom and bathroom because he's a disabled veteran. And we got a lot of runaround. And so one of the things that I sadly found out that the ADA really looks great on paper, but we need a lot more teeth into the ADA. And my question is, how we go do that?
There are provisions for enforcement within the law, and then of course it's a matter of will. And in the film you heard a fellow named Jack Duncan who talked about the Architectural Barriers Act, and you could see his frustration with the ideas that it wasn't enforceable. So the key is continuing advocacy by people who will fight for their rights. A lot of times people get very complacent and they just think, well, it's the law and that sort of thing. But just a few years ago, Judy Heumann, who was in this film, passed by a restaurant that was under construction and she noted that it was not accessible. So she said to the foreman who was building the restaurant, this is not acceptable. This is not accessible. This foreman said to her, I don't care. So there's a lot of people who don't care. Well, he was talking to the very worst person he could have been talking to, because Judy Heumann is not someone to mess with. And so I think the moral of that story is that she was willing to go to the mat with this foreman, and she backed him up really quickly because she understands the law and she understands how to get enforcement. So I think many people don't know about the ADA and how powerful it can be, but it does have teeth. And if people fight for the regulations within it, they will succeed.
Thank you. We have one last question. We're going to do door prizes, but I'm going to tell everybody you're going to stick around so they can ask their questions one-on-one to you after, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. Got you on the spot. Thank you.
I just want to say that the film was amazing. I think this generation's struggle is a little more nuanced because I think we're now in the communities, but we need to be fully integrated and understand that we have legitimate roles in the communities, and that communities need to not think of us as people over there, but that we can be directly a force within them, and just because we can celebrate this, there's always more to do. And also, there's family care councils, there's all these small groups around states and everything, but there needs to be a lot more involvement in these events, the big ones are great, but we need more day-to-day involvement from parents and everyone else. So just keep struggling.
I agree. And I encourage everybody in their community. I know in Tallahassee, July 26th, in our office, we're doing an old-fashioned screening of this movie again in the backyard with the lights and the openness. I encourage everybody else to do that on their communities too. Go home, get the video. You need help, screen it, show it to your communities. Convince your community to show it. It's a great night. I think it's a Friday night even. So July 26th. Thank you. Thank you.
Laurie. Thank you for having us.
And as I said, they're going to be here. They'll be able to answer questions.